Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're diving into something that's literally the backbone of how a huge company operates, budgeting. Now I know what you're thinking. The word budget sounds kind of dry, right? But trust me, this isn't just about spreadsheets and numbers. This is the production blueprint, the game plan that can make or break a company. So let's get into it.
I mean, seriously, have you ever thought about that? How does a giant like Nike figure out exactly how many Air Jordans to produce? It's not like they just guess, right? There's a super logical process behind it all. And once you see it, I promise a huge piece of management accounting is just going to click for you. Okay, so picture a company's entire financial plan like a massive line of dominoes, all set up perfectly. Well, the very first domino, the one that starts the entire chain reaction, is the sales forecast. That's the starting line. And if you get that one little number wrong, whoosh, the whole thing can come tumbling down.
And here's what that domino effect looks like. It all kicks off with the sales budget. How much do we think we're going to sell? That number then directly tells the production budget, how much we need to make. And that tells the materials, labor, and overhead budgets what resources we need to buy. It's all connected, starting with that one critical forecast.
So let's zoom in on that crucial second domino, the production budget. This is where we take a sales idea and turn it into a real manufacturing plan. For your future exams, especially the LECPA, you absolutely have to know this formula. But don't sweat it. It's way more intuitive than you think.
So, the official textbook definition says it's a plan for the units you need to produce to meet sales needs and have your desired ending inventory. Okay, what does that actually mean in plain English? It means you're playing a balancing act. You've got to make enough to sell today while also making sure you have enough on the shelf for tomorrow.
Honestly, this is the best way to remember it. Think about stocking your fridge. The amount of groceries you need to buy, that's your required production, depends on what you plan to eat for the week, which is your budgeted sales. Plus, you probably want some extra snacks left over at the end of the week, right? That's your desired ending inventory. But wait, you don't have to buy everything because you've probably got some leftovers from last week, and that's your beginning inventory. It's the exact same logic.
So here's how that fridge logic looks as a formula. You start with what you need to sell. Then you add what you want to have left over on the shelf. That gives you your total needs. But, and this is the key, you get to subtract what you already have in stock at the beginning. And boom, what's left is exactly what you need to produce. Simple, right?
Let's plug in some real numbers and see it work. So Hampton Freeze plans to sell 10,000 units. They also want to have 6,000 units in their warehouse at the end of the quarter. So add those together and their total need is 16,000 units. But they check the warehouse and they've already got 2,000 units ready to go. So 16,000 minus 2,000, they only need to produce 14,000. The logic just flows.
Okay, but what if you're not a company that makes things, like a manufacturer? What if you're a retailer, like a department store that just buys stuff and resells it? Well, you don't need a production budget because you're not producing anything. You need its close cousin, a merchandise purchases budget. And the great news is the thinking is almost identical. On one hand, you've got manufacturers. They make stuff, so their whole world revolves around a production budget. On the other hand, you've got merchandisers. They buy stuff, so their world revolves around a purchases budget. Different actions, making versus buying, but they're both trying to solve the exact same problem, having the right amount of stuff at the right time.
And check this out. Does this formula look a little familiar? It should. The only real switch is that instead of starting with sales in units, we start with budgeted cost of goods sold. Why? Because retailers think in terms of the cost of their inventory, not just the number of items. But the rest of the logic, add your ending inventory, subtract your beginning inventory, it's the same thought process, just in a different context.
All right, everybody, shift gears for a second. Let's get into some rapid-fire brain hacks for the LECPA. This is the stuff you absolutely want to lock down for exam day. Think of this as your high-yield review. Let's go. First up, key terms. Master budget, that's the whole shebang. Operating budgets, that's your day-to-day money-making activities. Financial budgets, that's all about cash. Oh, and definitely no budgetary slack. That's when managers kind of fudge the numbers to make their targets easier to hit. It's a classic exam topic, so don't forget it. Next up, let's talk about common traps they'll try to catch you with. First, if a question asks what budget is prepared first, the answer is always the sales budget. Always. Also remember, the cash budget is a financial budget, not an operating one. That's a tricky one. And please, please read those inventory questions carefully. A policy based on next quarter's sales is totally different from one based on the current quarter's sales.
Okay, deep breath. We've talked formulas, we've talked exam hacks, but let's zoom out. Why does any of this really matter outside of a classroom? Because this isn't just about passing a test. It's about understanding the core strategy that keeps a business alive and thriving.
I love this quote from Ben Franklin because it's so true. A budget isn't a restriction, it's a roadmap. It's the company's game plan that makes sure everyone, from the sales team to the factory floor to the finance department, is all working together heading in the same direction. Without it, you're just guessing. You're planning to fail.
And the stakes are incredibly high. Think about it. If you get this budget wrong, one of two bad things happens. You either don't produce enough, leading to empty shelves and angry customers. That's a stock out. Or you produce way too much, and now you have millions of dollars of cash tied up in products just sitting in a warehouse. Either way, you're lighting money on fire.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Yeah, the formula itself looks pretty simple, but imagine the scale. What happens when a company like Apple gets its production budget wrong by just 1%? 1% of millions and millions of iPhones? That's a mistake that can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah, mastering this isn't just about an exam. It's about understanding a fundamental key to business survival.